Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Women's Health Unwrapped. I'm joined today by Nicola Wood, who I'm extremely excited to chat with, both because I love chatting with you, but also because I know that you, the listener, are going to take so much away from this conversation and Nicola's story. So I'm not going to say too much about what the topic and conversation is on, but I just wanted to kind of set it up by saying that I think this story is really one of resilience and empowerment and health. It's also one of recognizing how different things across our bodies and lives can impact how healthy, well, and strong we feel as women. So I'm going to get straight into it. Welcome to the episode, Nicola.
Thank you, Nicola, for having me. It's been a long time coming.
Yes,
We chat so often, but never officially. So yeah, I'm
I
pleased to
know.
be here.
Yes, it's great to have you here. So, to kick off, I'd just like to find out from you right now, what's your most impactful healthy habit in your toolkit?
Ooh, my most impactful healthy habit in my toolkit. Yeah.
Yes, for
Um,
yourself, yeah.
for myself, that is that the first 2 hours of every day belong to me.
Oh,
And only
wow.
me. I do get up at 5 o'clock to make that happen, but I like getting up early. Yeah, the first 2 hours are just for me.
Mm. And what do you feel that's given you in terms of your overall like energy and well-being?
Mm. So yeah, I'm an early bird, so it doesn't bother us getting up early. I just love that quiet before the world wakes up. I also really need to move on a morning because I've got rheumatoid arthritis, and if I don't move, I can't move for the rest of the day. So getting some
Mm.
movement in the beginning of the day is vital for me to be able to just operate. So yeah, it usually looks like cold water on my face to make sure I'm actually awake. Then movement, whatever that looks like, training, gym, running, swimming, something out of the house. When it's light, definitely outdoors as well. And then I might come back and just do something that's important to me until 7 o'clock. And then the rest of the house wakes up and I'm in mum mode, getting my little boy
Mm.
ready for school. So yeah, changes
Oh,
every morning, but
amazing.
usually it's just it's exercise.
Yeah. And we could actually do the whole episode on you and your healthy lifestyle because I do think that you're such an advocate for taking care of yourself and also being able to juggle all of those balls. I know it's not always juggled extremely perfectly like real life, but I know that you do a lot to really put all of them pieces together of that well-being toolkit and support yourself. And that does lend itself to what I highlighted in the intro about resilience and empowerment. But we're not going to dive into how Nicola has built those healthy habits and really shifted. I think some of that will come through in a story. But what I wanted to start with was the TEDx talk that you gave. And Nicola delivered this in Warrington, I think the year before last now, 23. Yeah. You
Yeah,
can watch
into
that on YouTube.
23.
I'll link to it in the notes. But I wanted to dive into what you focused on in that talk about the emotional, psychological, and that deep connection between hair and identity, especially for women. So, yeah, what did you mean by that connection between your hair and women and how it impacts, their confidence and more than just the appearance side of things?
Mm. I guess for me, I've always known that hair is important. And all I ever wanted to do was work with hair. And working with hair every day, I always describe it as you get to be the best part of somebody's day every day. I mean, what a job to have already. Like if you go to the hairdresser's, Nick, that's the best part of your day, isn't it? A lot of women's the best part of their week, their month is getting the hair done.
Yeah.
So you've got like this ability to make people just instantly feel better through the hair. Like even when you just wash your hair, you feel better. When you've had your hair done, you feel better. When you walk into a boardroom and you've just had a blow dry, you feel great. So I've always known the power of a haircut. I've never underestimated it. And then I guess yeah, when I started to work with hair loss, you uh, multiply that by 1,000,000, because that's how important hair is to your identity when you lose it. Um,
Mm.
and I guess working with hair loss brought home actually just how pivotal hair is for you to feel good. It's what
Mm.
identified us through the last thousands of years as being beautiful, it as being feminine. Um, yeah, hair is a lot more than people think it is.
So you mentioned you started when you first started to cut hair, you kind of knew it was important, but I know I've heard you talk many times about this, that you didn't have that really like deep understanding of that psychological and emotional connection women have with hair until that became a part of your own personal story. So I'd love for you to share that in whatever way feels comfortable with you, because you are an expert at sharing it, and it's a big, very powerful story. So you just start wherever works for you.
So yeah, I obviously worked with hair since I was 12. I actually started working in a hairdresser's when I was 12. And knew its importance. And then I had a nice little business in the suburbs of Sunderland, ticking along. Life was just plain sailing, really. Uh, and when I was 36, was diagnosed with breast cancer. Um, and I guess that's when the rest of my life changed. My life now is changed because of that. But that was my pivotal moment. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer and suddenly thrown into all of the worries that come with that, which is, am I going to be here next year? Am I going to watch my kid grow up? How am I going to run a business when I've got no income? How am I going to be off work? How all of these things are going through your mind. And I was very deep in that. Why me? Like, uh, when I look back, I was just struggling. I was just
Mm.
struggling to cope with all of the emotions that come with cancer at that age, and having a particularly bad day in the hospital. I'd been crying for hours this one day in the radiotherapy department. Um, and obviously being there every day, I'd noted every day women with no hair, women with wigs on, women with bad wigs on, women just holding themselves so differently when they had no hair. It's like somebody had took their crown off. The sparkle was gone. It was like, look at me, I've got cancer. And I describe it as like a proper trumpet moment. I just suddenly had this overwhelm. I stopped crying and I said to Stephen, "This is why I got cancer." And he says, "What do you mean?" I went, "This is why I got it." I said, "Because I'm going to make that woman feel beautiful." And I just knew then that that was the rest of my life. Um, Sounds cheesy, but that's exactly how it happened. And from that moment on, I never really gave cancer a second thought. It was like my cancer was gone. I was cured because I had like this purpose. And like
Mm.
I couldn't wait to get out of radiotherapy that day and get home and start researching how I was going to make this better for those women. Hmm.
Oh, incredible. And it doesn't matter how many times I've heard you tell it in the different ways I have heard, it just always gives me goosebumps and does make me feel so emotional, because you talk about this in the different ways that you share your story, how for many women, when they're given a cancer diagnosis, the first thing they'll ask is, am I going to die? And the second thing, or sometimes the first thing, is, am I going to lose my hair? And that's such an important thing that often trumps, am I going to die? Because we are so connected to the identity that our hair gives us, aren't we? And when you are going through treatment for cancer and you're then also worrying about your hair and your identity, because I know from hearing you, like, your confidence can be knocked for so many reasons when you have a cancer diagnosis and are going through the treatment, but then to have that extra element on top, which is a
Mm.
huge one for many women, must be so tough. And so working with women who are losing their hair, not just from cancer treatment, but now from all kinds of different, conditions or reasons. And you're seeing this come through. And how do you see this play out with those women, and, how it's impacting their overall health and well-being?
Mm. I describe it as, you've lost your crown. It's your sparkle. It's your confidence. Women, they lose the confidence. They don't feel attractive. I mean, we can lose a breast and wear a prosthesis and it's under our clothes. And although you're different, you can hide that from the world. When you lose your hair, it feels kind of dehumanizing. It's like, look at me. And some days you don't want to be Nicola with cancer or Nicola with alopecia. Some days you just want to be Nicola. But if you've got no hair, then it's very, very, yeah, people are going to notice. People are going to
Mm.
think there's something wrong with you. If you want to just be Nicola that day, it's very difficult to go to work with no hair suddenly and people not to notice, isn't it? So it impacts people hugely, and we meet lots and lots of women who will refuse treatment. They just won't have the treatment because they will not lose the hair. It's like I describe it in the talk, it's a new level of naked for women.
Mm.
And there are women who, again, in the TEDx talk, I talk about it, but I've met women who will be fully naked in front of their husband for years, but their husband has never seen them without the wig.
Mm.
It's a new level of naked being without your hair.
Yeah. And like I said, that lends itself to then so many different challenges. There must be so much going on inside of your head with what this means and your value and your worth. And I center everything I do really around women and their self-worth, because when you don't have strong self-worth, it doesn't matter how many times you go to the gym or how many, pieces of fruit and veg you're eating, you're not going to really feel healthy, well and strong and live a full life. And so if she's struggling with all of that noise that's going on because of what hair loss means, then it's going to play out in such a huge way, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And I think a
Mm.
lot of what we do is just try and get our people to some sort of level of acceptance. Even
Yeah.
if that's temporary acceptance, if that's longer term acceptance, but really we're just kind of navigating them through what it looks like for them till they can be accepting of it. And quite often the woman it won't be her acceptance, it's everybody else's acceptance she needs.
Mm-hmm.
So she'll be all right once that child is all right with seeing her with no hair. That lady will be all right if our girlfriends know that she's lost her hair and she's going to be wearing a wig when she goes to meet them for dinner. It's often you just need everybody around you to be all right with it before you can be all right with it. So my
Mm-hmm.
job, our role is to how can I help that lady know that her child's going to be all right with it? It's very, very little to do with supplying new hair.
Yeah.
Which is what people think we do, but it's not. It's that's like that part of what we do. The rest of it
Mm-hmm.
is all of the emotional stuff that we build around it, so that actually she feels good with and without her hair.
So you fast forwarded from that day in the hospital where you had the whole trumpets, lights, everything giving you this awakening of why you had cancer and what you were going to do. And now you're working to help people who are losing the hair. So tell me a little bit then about that journey and how that has shifted where you are, because you are living in a very different way to what you were pre your cancer diagnosis, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess so. So I suppose, yeah, that was a big fast forward, wasn't it? But in between that, I set up a service that was deserving. I set up the perfect service that I would have wanted for myself or my mum or, somebody I love. What would they want? And that's what I set up. Um, and then that grew exponentially, really, because we did it differently, because we were doing all of those other things that were needed. It grew beyond compare. I also realised that the people I wanted to help the most were the people that weren't being helped the most. So it's not the woman who can afford to walk into any shop and buy a wig if you want a wig or a hair integration system. That woman can afford that, or might have more signpost into that. Or how do I help somebody who's not under the radar, who's not getting any help, who's not being signposted? So I tried to make a service that I could help everybody, which meant that I needed to work with the NHS. So attended to the NHS and was awarded a contract to help Sunderland Hospital, and then that grew into Newcastle and Gateshead and Durham and Darlington and Leeds, and so that we can cover the whole northeast. And then I guess the latter few years of the business have been about me using my voice to try and shout about the impact that it has and push for bigger change, whether that's through the NHS or whether that's through the training that up and coming hairdressers get. So using my voice to advocate for people who don't have one with hair loss, really.
And you're doing a great job of that. And I want to say, many years ago, it's definitely over 20 years ago, Nicola was my hairdresser. And your little shop was a very little shop on a very typical local town street or city, probably by then. But just that little hairdressers that so many people love to go to. And you helped my mum when she'd had a brain aneurysm. I don't know if you can remember this. I brought her to you for the first time, and she'd had, open brain surgery, and she had a huge scar and a big chunk of her hair had been removed for the operation. And that was such a huge thing for her to have to deal with. She didn't have long hair. It was quite short, but it was such a part of her identity. And she was nervous naturally about the scar still being very fresh, and going to a hairdresser and someone touching it, but also seeing it and having her hair grow back. And she came to you for a long time after that to get her hair done, which was just, so much appreciated, because you, even then, without the knowledge you've got now, were really sympathetic and just, compassionate towards how she felt being in that situation. So, Nicola has been on this huge journey. Now you've got the salon still, but much bigger and much, she was saying, much more shiny and sparkly, along with the wonderful wig company, which, as you said, has just gone from strength to strength. And recently, very recently, you've just published your book. So I'd love you to share a little bit about that and what drove you to want to write that book and put it out for others to read.
Yeah, just the same, really, about impacting people who might not be under everybody else's radar. So I just met thousands and thousands of women over the last few years in the business who are going through cancer, and for every person who is lucky to have a family and comes to that appointment to get the new hair, sometimes we have 8 people in that room. They bring the mum, the dad, the sister, the brother,
Wow.
the kids, the grandkids. I'd actually had 8 people in the room before. But for every family like that, there'll be little Mary Smith who walks through the door and she's completely on her own. She's got nobody, like a husband, she might be a widower. She's got nobody. And I just kept thinking, I felt so much better in my cancer journey when I had my cancer friends, which sounds really, but it's true. Other people in your shoes get it, and I felt less alone. I made one particularly amazing friend who isn't with us anymore. But me and her were like, yeah, could tell her everything. Didn't matter what was on my mind. We both had the same sick sense of humour throughout it, and as soon as I found her and the rest of the people who I connected with, I felt better. And all the last few years, all I thought was, how can I help Mary feel less alone? Because she hasn't got the internet. She hasn't even got a lift to come to she hasn't even got a lift to come here. Sometimes I'm going to their house because they can't even get a bus. or at the hospice where I see people and they can't get out of the house. So where is she getting that network? Who's telling her that other people are in her shoes? Because you feel so alone. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to write. I always described it as the shittiest club in the world that nobody ever asks to join. And I just thought, I want to tell other people's stories so that when Mary comes in the shop to get her new hair or for a haircut, I'll say, there you go, Mary, you're not on your own. And that's literally kind of, that was the meaning behind it, really. And it was also, I know you talked about like what works for me. It was a very selfish project because I get such great release from writing. And obviously, you well know because you helped me edit. I don't write for prizes. I write the way I speak, and so I'm certainly not a novelist. But writing for me is therapy. I write every day. I journal. I write lists. Like I've always got a pen and paper by my side, and so I wanted to write my story down, and I started off trying to write a few pages, and 100 pages later, and I hadn't looked up, So it was therapy for me. Then the people I got involved with the book, it was therapy for them. They all said how cathartic the process was and how it gave them such relief and release to do that. And so, yeah, that's why it exists now.
And what I loved about the book the first time that I read one of the draft copies was that it's not your story from beginning to end. You've cleverly woven your story across the book, but brought in all of these other stories from people of all corners of the world, literally, haven't you? Like different ages and types of cancer and types of situation and just so many different viewpoints, because I think that for me that's the point of the book, is to really help people to see that there isn't a way of cancer. Like there's not a prescription you can give someone to go, when you get a diagnosis, this is what you do, because there's so many different types of cancers, but it also just plays out so differently in terms of the treatment, but how it then affects your life. And so you've brought all of these different angles to the book, which then are woven into your own story, which in itself is so powerful. And what I really want to call out from the book, given what my podcast is about, is that you are really vulnerable in the book of sharing how you realised you had to shift the way you lived and worked because you were running on adrenaline and very stressed and lacking in energy and so on, getting by. But actually now you'd had that diagnosis and at such a young age, you also had an awakening about life can't go on like this. And is that something you can reflect on now and also see was part of your story? It's helped you to now be living much healthier, like what you shared at the start of the episode.
Yeah, I think in terms of cancer stories, mine is very insignificant compared to some of the people in the book, but it was my reaction to it that I guess helped pivot the way I wanted to live going forward. I always thought if I meet people every day who are not going to be here next year, and if they can live a life, like how dare I be given the chance of total cure and not absolutely live every day and not give myself the best chances? That's what it made us think. It made us think that I'm the lucky one. I've been given this chance. Then I don't deserve it if I'm going to waste it by not being healthy or not looking after myself or all of those things that I do now.
I love that. And as I touched on at the start, life is a juggle. You're running essentially two businesses. You're doing a lot of things as part of those. You've got a busy life personally with you've got your son and your husband and wider family and so on, like so many women have. We've got all of these different balls to juggle. How do you juggle those literally and make sure that you are staying true to that reasoning you had about living healthy and being able to
Mm.
have that full life beyond your cancer?
Mm. I talk about this, and it probably sounds like I'm a bit obsessive, but I track everything. Like I have tracker, I have a digital tracker and a spreadsheet, and I track absolutely everything that I do every week. So I track my work hours, I track my sleep hours, I track how many glasses of water I drink, I track how many days holiday, I track like I literally track everything, and then every Sunday I review my week, and I see what went well and what didn't go well, and I change the following week. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't work, but it makes it, it just, I'm aware of it constantly. I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware if I've got a really work heavy week. I'm aware if I've got, if I've been working over my normal hours. And I also know what that does to my sanity.
Mm.
And I'm just not willing to do that anymore. So, yeah, and I also, my husband and my sister are well aware of what I want for my life, and they will just rein us in if I'm going off track. So my husband will say, will say it was no work after work, Nicola, or no emails before. Like he'll just call us out, and my sister calls us out if I do the same in the business. So do my team. I
Mm.
don't let them work after work, so they call me out if I answer an email. Yeah, and that sounds a bit like I've got loads of harsh. My husband also says I've got loads of rules on myself, but it's what works for us.
Yeah.
Because I am naturally a doer. I'm an action taker. I want to do. And I have a million ideas a week. And actually not putting them all into practice is very difficult for me. So I genuinely I have to rein myself in by tracking and using all these rules to stop us going off kilter. In fact,
Yeah.
me team have got us written in blood this year, no new projects on the wall. Because I just want to do everything, but I
Mm.
know it's not good for us. I end up in a place, and I've done that a few times, and
Mm.
I don't want to go back there.
Oh, and like you say, that works for you. It's your personality. It's how you are.
Mm.
And I love Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, and he talks a lot about these rules. And I actually work in a very similar way. And it doesn't have to be a rule like what you might think about when you think
Mhm.
of school and so on. But I think, at the end of the day, we spend our entire lives with ourselves. So we have to be able to trust ourselves. And I think what you're talking about is ultimately making that commitment to yourself and trusting yourself that you are going to take that action and do that thing to live that way. So just to kind of wrap up, what always comes through on the podcast, and I was speaking about this in a very different set of a situation yesterday with some other ladies, is that so many people only manage to make those positive changes to start taking better care of themselves and feel healthier when life does throw them a curveball. And that might be something like what you experienced with, diagnosis of an illness or disease or a health scare or the loss of a loved one. It often takes that real low point, like hitting, a wall and having to do something. And I don't want women to wait for that to happen. I want women to be healthy, to try to minimize the risk of certainly health related issues arising, but to just live their full life. And especially when we're thinking about menopause and all of those changes and so on. So what would be like 3 simple steps, because I'm all about this simple steps someone can take to start to make these changes a part of who they are and their habits? What advice would you give someone to take like 3 simple steps to start valuing their health today rather than waiting for that rock bottom moment?
Well, if that was related to hair and hair loss, I would say that don't ignore hair loss. If you can see something that's different for you, what's happening with our scalp and hair can often be a very good indicator of what's happening within the body. So, if you notice shedding, diffuse shedding, anything like this, don't ignore it. Go and ask for some blood tests. Don't wait. So don't ignore it. If you're experiencing already some hair loss, it might be, through the menopause, we're going to have changes, etc. if that's happening, then we need to just treat your hair like a flower, and it needs three things. It needs sunlight, water, and good nutrition. And those three things give you a healthy scalp and hair, not £100 gummy bears off Instagram that are promising you the world. Like, your hair literally needs three basic things. Your hair and scalp needs three things to thrive, and that's sunlight, water, and food.
And when you say food, you're talking about on the majority of it being what you eat rather than what you put on product wise.
Or yeah, or everything about what's in your mouth. It's
Yeah.
vitamins and minerals. It's not products.
Yeah.
I'll not bore you with that, but like, there's two ingredients in the whole world that can help your hair when you've lost it, and then none of them are in shampoo. So all of those products might help you, make you feel nice and keep your hair feeling healthy and full, but they're they're not going to make your hair grow thicker and stronger and longer, and like all of the things that they promise. So yeah, it's about what you're putting in your mouth that makes much more difference to your hair than what you put on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same with skin, isn't it? A lot of people ask me, 'cause I do some skincare stuff about that, and I'll always start with a diet where they want to start with, well, what product can I buy? Because we've got that ingrained in us, haven't we, to just spend money and slap something on our head or face and it's all going to fix it. But yeah, that's great advice. So I'm going to pop some links into the show notes. I really do encourage you to go and watch Nick's TEDx talk. It's amazing. You will literally have goosebumps and tears. I'm pretty sure of that. But it's just such an empowering message. So I will link to that. And I'm also going to link to your book. Please, like, buy the book, read it, share it, buy it for someone you think might, take something from it. And obviously the book hit multiple Amazon best-selling category lists. Like, what have you done to celebrate the success of the book since it launched?
I went out for dinner with my husband and son last Saturday at a Phoenix in Newcastle. We had a steak. So it was very nice.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And where's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to find out more and, hopefully share what you do if there's someone in their life that they know needs your services?
Yeah, so we've got wonderfulwigs.co.uk, and for more of the advocacy stuff, I am nicolawood.com.
Amazing. Like I say, I'll pop all of the links in the notes. So thank you so much for your time, and just a huge congratulations on the book and all of the other, success you're having, because you are making a real difference to lots of people's lives, especially to lots of women's lives. And I appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.